That's my, the way I play, and I'm just not tall enough for that position. You know what I'm saying? I think Charles Barkley's 6'4", and he was a power forward. But he's 6'4" and was like he's like the shortest power forward in the league in the NBA. So that just tells you how never work with a 6 foot power forward. Could never. They're guards. Guards are the shortest people on the court usually, and they're all usually more than 6 foot tall. Not all the time. Every now and then you get a guy who's like the regular height of a man, meaning he's 5'10" or something. Like I think Isaiah Thomas was 5'10". Spud Webb was 5'7". Muggsy Bogues was only 5'3". So, but those are exceptions. Most of the players are tall in basketball. But anyway, I see these football players out here in the cold and getting, constantly hitting the ground, elbows getting, all dirty and digging into the dirt. And I'll be thinking, man, don't you want to protect your elbows at least? I mean, you're seeing guys getting, scraped. And sometimes you're playing on this artificial turf, which, you can get like a rug burn on that stuff. It's like, you ever had a rug burn on your knees when you're trying to get busy? Not in the Burger King bathroom, no. Just at your house on the floor with a young lady. Now you could suffer that for that. You know what I'm saying? But you have a rub the skin off your knees trying to get down on the floor with someone. But I don't know. If I was playing football, I think I'd want to cover my knees and elbows all the time. Sometimes it's all about the weather. When the football season first starts, it's usually still warm outside. And so you're out there running around with these pads on and a helmet and you get hot. So that's why a lot of guys don't wear, get to sweating. They want to vent. So they don't wear any sleeves. But I can't understand why they're still not wearing sleeves in the wintertime. I remember playing this game one time and it was cold, man. And I had sleeves on, but it was just a t-shirt, long sleeve t-shirt on under my uniform. And I had my pair of shorts on under my football pants and long socks pulled up and everything. And my feet were still cold. And I was like, my hands were still cold. I didn't have no gloves back then. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't afford the gloves. I was poor. I was a poor kid. So I didn't even have no gloves, just regular socks. They were long socks, but my toes were cold, man, when I was standing on the sideline. Now, once you get into the game, get to running around a little bit, you get warmed up a little bit. But yeah, when you're standing on the sideline, because I was on I was waiting for I was on offense most of the time. Now, when we were playing as kids, and it was Pee Wee football, Pop Warner, for most of you that live in big cities, they have a Pee Wee football, but it's a Pop Warner league. Pop Warner is the guy who started it, so they call it Pop Warner. He started the Pee Wee football for the kids, and it sort of spread through all big cities. This is a long time ago. It was like 100 years ago or something. But anyway, I didn't grow up in a big city, so they just called it Pee Wee football. This is the same thing. But we went to travel around the different cities and playing different teams of Pee Wee football, and the best teams. We even had a playoffs. The best teams would make it to the playoffs, and then we'd have a league championship. But man, there's one game we played. It was really cold. It was really cold out. My feet was so cold. My toes, man. My toes was so cold. I can't. Whenever I see these NFL players, I know they got better equipment than we had. They got nice gloves that are thinsulated, meaning they have like a thin layer of body heat repelling material inside the gloves that you put your hands in them. They don't have to be thick gloves. They can still be skin tight gloves, and they're supposed to not let your body heat escape the gloves. That's what they're supposed to do. I don't know how great that works, but they also got socks and the whole suit that you can put on, like a whole spandex suit that you can wear underneath your it's like one of those pajamas with the footies. You know what I'm saying, that the kids have. It's a one piece, They have those for adults for body heat reflection. That's what it's for. It's supposed to keep your body heat in. You wear that. I don't see many players wearing it though. I had a guy explain it to me at an athletic store. He was trying to sell me one. He was like, "You can use this for jogging." And I'm like, "Look at me, man. Do I look like I jog?" And he was like, "No, but you can start now that you have this." I'm like, "No." And it was like, the thing was over $200. I was like, "I don't think so, bruh. I ain't buying no suit to keep me warm when I'm jogging in the cold, when I don't even jog when it's warm out. I'm not jogging. Jogging is not jogging's not for me." Oh, by the way, I had and I'm not done telling you about this, why I think that these games can be played outside and just don't have anybody in the stands and you'll be fine. The reason is because I've seen some horse races on over the weekend. There was horse races that were on. So, horse races were going on, and only thing they changed is they didn't have anybody in the stands. People were still able to bet. I don't know how they did that. Maybe they were doing that online on the horse races, because one guy won $500,000 by betting on a horse race. Now, he had to guess 5 races in a row who was going to win. Just the winner. He didn't get all the horses' orders right. But usually when you go to a horse race, except for these big races, some of you see these big races like the Kentucky Derby or the Belmont Stakes or whatever it is, where they only have one race and that's it. But a lot of these horse races, when you go to them, they have multiple races. It's not just one race usually. What you're watching, it may just be the one race if it's a big race. But usually when you go to a horse race, it's multiple races. So this guy's like they have like 13, 14 races, sometimes more. But this guy, he guessed 5 races in a row and won what horse was going to win. It takes a lot of research to do that. You got to know the horses, know how good they are and how they run on a dirt track, or how they run on what different kind of tracks, and how they run in different kind of weather and all this stuff. You got to do a lot of research to try to figure that out. And still, it takes some luck to it, because you never know what could happen in the race. The horse could, trip or step wrong and get slowed down. He might not even hurt himself, but he might, sometimes a horse is running and they step in like a divot or something on the track, and then it slows them down, and then they lose when you thought, damn, I bet on that horse, it was going to win. But anyway, they still had horse races. Only the jockeys were wearing the mask. So you still can have races, and the jockey was wearing the mask. So that was my idea. I think the baseball can do the same thing, just not sell tickets to the event and have it on TV. Just have the batters were close to the catcher and the umpires all wearing the mask, and everybody else is already spaced out. So the horses wasn't wearing any masks. It was just the jockeys. I don't know if they could have horses wearing a mask. Those guys probably, the horses probably go crazy, so they wouldn't. I don't know if that worked, but the human beings were wearing the mask. The little jockeys, those little guys that look like a gnome. Yeah, the jockeys be in the front yard, little guys. The horse jockeys are damn near about the same size. Those guys are pretty small. Those are little guys. They like to have little guys being jockeys because, you don't want to put a lot of weight on the horse when he's trying to race. That sort of defeats the purpose of him racing. So that was my idea. Still play sporting events. Just have it outside and it reduces the spread. And then the guys can wear the athletes can wear a mask. You don't need the sell tickets to the event. I think it'll work like that. But that's just me. But anyway, that's just an idea. Maybe it's just me. But something to think about. But I want to talk just for a second, just for a minute, about certain phrases. I was going to say something about tipping, but I think I talked about that last podcast, how I don't tip according to percentages. Everybody talking about these percentages. And I usually just tip according to service, but I think I did talk about that last time. We'll get into that again when it comes up, but there's something that's annoying to me. It's been happening for years, but and I've said it to people before, and to see what anyone else thinks, and that's this. Have you ever heard someone say, does that make sense? The phrase, does that make sense, is so annoying to me. And it's usually because it's someone says it after they say something that any idiot can understand. Does that make sense? Of course it makes sense, dumbass. You're just saying something simple. It's not complicated. When you say something complicated, then it should be followed by, does that make sense? Because the person you're saying it to may not understand. But when you're saying something easy that any fool, not the average person, not a smart person, and I'm not saying that I'm a smart person, I'm just saying the only time I've usually heard anybody say, does that make sense, is when they were saying something that any idiot would understand. Of course it makes sense. I mean, they say something simple like, so, to drive a car, you need to have keys and turn in, and then to start the ignition. Does that make sense? Of course it makes sense, jackass. What the hell's wrong with you? Does that make sense? You're saying something simple. Of course that makes sense. Well, what happened was I wanted to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so I took peanut butter and spread it on bread. And then I put jelly on the other piece of bread, and I put those two pieces together. Does that make sense? Be like, man, if you say that shit one more damn time, I'm going to take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and smack you upside the head with it. Does that make sense? So, in conclusion to this pet peeve, that's what I should do. Just add some pet peeves to the show. Just have a segment where I just talk about stuff that's annoying, like, does that make sense? Don't say that ever again unless you're talking about something like brain surgery or